Hi, everybody. It's Leslie Murr with the Collective Real Estate Group. I hope everyone is doing well and enjoying your start to 2022. I wanted to come on today and talk about the one thing to master because it's the only thing that matters in sales. And many of you are probably thinking that you know what it is. I actually had somebody reach out to me when I put my video topics on a board and say, oh, it's closing. You have to master closing in order to get a sale, right? And I think so many of us that have been in sales for so long, that makes perfect sense. But actually, it's not closing. The one thing that you need to master, because it matters the most in sales, and it's becoming truer and truer every single day, is customer service. When you think about it, that should make total sense to everyone. And the idea of customer service and customer experience has changed so much and so rapidly with the technology boom that's happening. So many things are different than it used to be 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 30 years ago. Everything is completely different in terms of what is classified as good customer service. One of the most impressive statistics that I've heard when researching this topic is American Express did a large consumer research study, and they found that I'm going to read it so I get it exactly right, 90% of American consumers base purchasing decisions on customer experience. 90%. 90%. It doesn't, in the world of percentages, it doesn't get much higher than that. 90%. And further than that, 91% of customers base their buying decision on perceived customer service. So the perception of good customer service, the way somebody feels about a company, the perception that they have on the customer service that they'll receive when they purchase with that company is part of what drives them to buy. So when you talk about companies that are known for their customer service, known for great experiences, those are companies that are winning the sale because the perception of customer service or good customer service is what's driving people to buy in those companies. So that's amazing statistic. And what's the most exciting part is that everyone has the ability to have great customer service. There's not a secret to it. There are skills to it, but there's skills that you can learn to have great customer service. So it's an opportunity for all of us to learn more about it, really dive in to what our customers are expecting, because that's the game, right? We have to deliver on the expectations of our customers. And what's the only way to understand our expectation of our customers? What's the best way? To ask them, right? We need to ask them what their expectations are. So if you think about customer service and you think about how it has changed over the last decade or 2 decades, we think about what used to mean good customer service, right? And some of the way that it has changed are, one, customer service and the expectation that comes with it is now expected to be immediate, right? We have all kinds of technology. We have chatbots. We have education boxes that pop up. We have all kinds of technology that support an immediate response to somebody's question. Even just the invention of the internet, and all companies, basically any thriving company is going to have a website. That means that people can have access to information 24/7. They don't have to wait to get information. So your website should be optimized and make sure that you have all the information for somebody on there. So immediate information, right? Think about it. 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, we didn't necessarily expect immediate information. But even if you don't think that you have that expectation, think about when you call somebody. Are you annoyed if they don't pick up the phone? Think about when you go and you want to post something on Facebook. I just said this the other night. I wanted to post something on Facebook because I needed an answer, and it went to, your post has to be approved by an administrator, moderator, right? So, and I was like, oh, I hate that because I just wanted to get it on and get the information that I wanted. So we as consumers have a immediate expectation in terms of what we think good experiences are. That's a huge one. Personalization is another really big one. Right now, with all of the AI and all of the machine learning that we have, things are personalized to us. Think about when think about 20 years ago, if you would get a mailer in your mailbox, right? It might be or a letter in your mailbox. It might be, oh, we're running a sale on XYZ at the store, at the department store. Now, if you get a letter from that department store, it's probably coming in an email or a text, and it's probably saying, Dear Leslie, you have 487 points accumulated, which is equal to $47. So come on in this weekend and you can use this money to buy your purchases. Everything is personalized to us. So it makes the call to action very, very strong because we're getting a message that's personalized to us. And we want that. We don't want generic information anymore. We want to know when somebody's emailing us about a mortgage that we might qualify for, do we qualify or do we don't qualify? Because we want to know, am I already pre-qualified? You have all my information. You did my mortgage before. Are we pre-qualified? Think about all those spam calls that really annoy us. They do have the information to understand what type of product you're qualified for already. Of course, there's additional information needed, but that's the marketing and the communication becoming more personalized. And so that's one way that customer service has changed. The other way is, which is a really big one, is independent, right? We as customers, and it's interesting to think about, but we as customers expect to be more independent when dealing with certain things. We want to understand, if we have a problem, we want to be able to go onto a company's website, troubleshoot, fix the problem without ever talking to a rep. Right? We want, most of the time, we want to be able to get in, get what we need, understand all of the things about it without ever having to get on the phone with someone. So we want independent learning, which is a huge part of UX, which is, there's CX and UX, customer service and user experience. And the customer experience is a huge part of what is driving a lot of the educational tools in these websites, because people want to go on, they want to learn what they're there to find, but they don't necessarily want to talk to anybody. So independence is a huge factor in how customer service is changing. So you may be asking, well, with all of this change and everything going on, I'm just a small company. I own a real estate company. I own, this small business, whatever it is. I'm on a team. How can I really change and affect my customer service? And there's 3 super easy ways to do that. There's tons of ways, but I'll focus on 3 really, really easy ways to affect customer service to make sure that you're providing the very best customer service that you can. The first one is super easy, and so many people get it wrong. The first one is building rapport and creating a relationship with that person. So you have so many opportunities to do this. Much when people say building rapport right now or creating a relationship, a lot of times people think in person, right? But if you think about our world today and the way that we are learning about other people, learning about our neighbors and our community, learning about the companies that we buy product from, or learning about the companies that we have services that we get services from, how are we first meeting them? The last time that someone called you, was it really out of the blue, or had they seen you on social media? Had they heard about you from someone else? Did they have some sort of awareness about you and or your brand so that they felt comfortable calling you, right? So for all companies, we are starting to build that rapport and create that relationship with consumers long before we ever talk face-to-face with them. Think about influencers. Influencers are there to introduce different brands to people, to their followers. So that way, when an influencer promotes a brand, then the follower feels like, okay, I understand that brand. That's building rapport with someone, and you're not even in the conversation. You didn't even do a post. Some third party is explaining your business, your business methodology, your product. Some third party person in that situation is explaining you and your business. And that's creating a relationship with that person, because that person is deciding whether or not your values meet up with theirs, whether or not they understand the product or service that you're offering, and whether or not they feel like you'd be a good fit to deliver that to them. So some of those basic fundamental relationship building blocks are happening long before we're ever face to face. So you have to think about things. How are you expressing your personal brand on social media? If you look through your social media post, would it reflect how you're actually going to do business in person? Would it reflect how you're going to talk to somebody? Would it reflect the things that you think are funny on, or you say you think you're funny on social media? Would you think they're funny in real life? Would that be your personal brand? So we want to make sure that that personal brand is authentic, so that when we're creating these initial relationships, they end up being true building blocks to that relationship. So let's assume that you get in front of someone that's already seen you, they've already started to understand your brand a little bit, and you end up face to face with them, or on a call, or in a message. How do you start genuinely building that rapport? Well, we know already that the number one driver of all decision making in purchasing is emotion, right? Hands down, we all know that. There's plenty of statistics to support that, and plenty of studies to support that. We know that in overall, everything we do is driven on emotion. So we know that we have to have a relationship with somebody in order for them to make a decision. So it is extremely important that we take those steps to build that relationship. And things that we can do there are learning about them. Ask them about their life, ask them about their family, ask them about, what's important to them. These probing questions that we can ask somebody when they're first getting to know us give us the information that we can connect with. You're looking for those little nuggets of information that you can make a true connection with. And I would venture to say, some people may not agree, but I would venture to say that if you've given that a true test and a true effort, and you have no nuggets, they just may not be your people. You may not be connecting, right? You're not going to connect with everybody in the world. So if you are trying to build rapport for weeks or months and it's just not happening, you might want to move on to the next person that you can create a genuine relationship with, so that you have those fundamental building blocks, because the people are going to have to like, know, and trust you in order to buy or do business with you. So right there, it can seem, you may say to me, you're crazy. You don't have to be best friends with everybody. Of course not. You don't have to be best friends with them, but they do have to like, know, and trust you. So if you don't feel like it's going that direction, and or you don't like, know, and trust them, that might be a time to say, potentially they'd be a much better fit with another person, and maybe possibly make a referral, rather than to try to force that emotional connection that's not going to be there, right? Expectation setting. This is huge. The number one thing that you can do throughout to get somebody ready for a process and to keep somebody happy during that process is, for one, you to understand the process yourself, and then two, to be able to actually communicate that into a way that they understand what's coming next. And you have to set the expectation so that there are no surprises, so that when something happens and it's a normal part of the process, your buyer or the real estate agent that's with them, or the seller, with whatever party you're trying to set expectations with, that they understand and are not worried about that. So as much as you can keep them anxiety-free, stress-free, that gives them an overall great user experience, right? So if during a process, they're freaked out and they're wondering and they feel like they have to call you and, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was going to happen. Even though in your mind, you know it's a normal part of the process and nothing is wrong, they don't. And so their experience is very different versus being in a position where they understand what's to come. And even though you might have to handhold a little bit, even still along the way, they understand what's to come and they are expecting those things to happen. So it helps their overall experience. The third thing that is huge and another thing that people miss often is communication. So how do you communicate with your buyers? Do you have a policy in your office on how you communicate? Do you have a process set up on how you communicate with people under contract? Do you have a methodology that's applied to every person? Maybe that's how you have it set up, right? But what is the best way to communicate with someone? If you're thinking about maximizing customer experience, what is the best way to communicate with someone? And it's not a trick question, even though so many times when we're asked that, we say, oh, yeah. Our closing coordinator sends out an email every 2 weeks and da-da-da-da. Maybe that's a process that you've put in place, but the best way every single time to communicate with somebody so that their customer experience is the best it can be is how they want to be communicated with. In my past life, I was in new home construction and we closed 6 to 1,200 homes a year. Every single time, it was crucial that we understood from our buyers how they wanted to be communicated with, right? Because it was super easy to put a process in place to communicate with everyone, but everyone doesn't want to be communicated the same way. So we learn this, at the basic level when we talk about personality differences and how people want to be talked to and communicated with. You may have a process in place, like I did, where you were going to email once a month and tell everybody an update and when their closing was happening and all of that. And you thought your team was doing an excellent job if they were keeping up with that process. Well, maybe 30% of your customer thought that process was terrible. Maybe they thought it should have been once a week. Maybe they thought it should have been, we have some that thought it should have been once a day. Maybe they thought it should have been different, that they thought the ideal customer experience would be different than the process that you had in place. So it's important to understand for everybody how they want to be communicated with, and or explain upfront, set the expectation for your process so that buyers understand what's going to be happening. If you're only going to communicate with them a certain way, or you're pre-set up to know that you have a process to communicate a certain way, tell them about that process and ask them, does that meet their expectations? And if they say no, see if there's a way to accommodate what they're looking for. Because in the end, their customer experience or their perception of customer experience is what's going to drive referrals, repeat business, and all the good things that we want from customer service. So we already know the tried and true fact. We already know that a happy person will tell 11 people about their experience, about their service, about their purchase. And a unhappy person will tell 17 people about their experience, about their purchase, about what happened. And in my experience, they're generally louder and they say more about it. So in this era right now that we're going through, you all know that it's super important to keep customers happy and make sure that their review is good, right? Because everybody's searching for a third-party endorsement on what kinds of decisions they want to make. And everybody has the ability to make those endorsements, whether they're good or bad, about the business or about your business or about the product or service that you provided. So those three things are very key, and I would check around with your team, within yourself, what processes or what best practices do you have around building rapport and relationships, communication, and setting expectation. And once you get those mastered, you will have mastered the one thing that matters most in sales.